Welcome to another episode of my podcast entitled The Wright Experience. I am Dr. William T. Wright, Jr., the founder and host of this show. During the last 23 years as a professional educator, I've been fortunate enough to get to know and work with some amazing leaders all across the United States. The vision of this show is to share these podcasts with you so that we can learn from people who are leading others every day. Our initial focus of this show will be on educational leaders, and we'll look to expand our disciplines down the road. When you hear something you like, please drop us a comment, click like, or if you're viewing us via YouTube, please click like, and most importantly, that subscribe button. I will appreciate you doing so. I have been absolutely amazed at the response we have received thus far from you, and I want to thank you. Tonight is episode 9 of The Wright Experience. This podcast features a gentleman that I've known over 20 years. Our history dates back, in fact, to a time where I was an assistant principal, a new one, in fact, in my home district of Nash Rocky Mount Schools. And at that time, he was the middle school director. I remember it well because he rescued me from a pretty sticky situation with some words of wisdom that I still remember to this day. And so when I had the opportunity to invite him on the show, I didn't hesitate to do so. And since then, we've served as colleagues both in South Carolina, and he's getting ready to rejoin us shortly for a period of time here in North Carolina. My guest tonight is Dr. Eddie Ingram. Dr. Eddie Ingram is a 39-year veteran of public education. He was an award-winning English and Latin teacher at his high school alma mater, Northeastern High School, where he also coached both basketball and tennis. He's been a middle school assistant principal, an elementary school principal, and a high school principal at 3 different high schools during his career. Dr. Ingram is credited with documented improvement in student achievement and student discipline at every school where he was principal. Before becoming superintendent, Dr. Ingram worked at the State Department of Public Instruction in North Carolina as a section chief for teacher education. He's also held various roles in district office leadership and central services positions that include, but are not limited to, human resources, curriculum, and athletics. From the superintendent's position, Eddie wrote and received a Gates Foundation grant starting the successful early college program in Franklin County, North Carolina, that is still ongoing today. Partnering with a major biotechnology company and with county officials, he was able to secure funding for a 12-classroom structure adjacent to the technical college. More recently, at Darlington County Schools in South Carolina, Eddie and his staff worked with community members to develop a consensus on identifying skills that students need the most to succeed in the 21st century, and that work continues in his current position in Berkeley County Schools in South Carolina. Eddie is a graduate of the College of Albemarle, where he lettered in varsity tennis. He holds his BS degree in English education from Old Dominion University. He earned his doctorate at East Carolina and also holds 2 master's degrees from that institution. Eddie is married to retired school social worker Sue Ingram, and he's the proud father of 3 daughters and 1 granddaughter. He's also the proud father of his precocious dog, Raleigh, the only other male in his immediate family. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I'd like to welcome my good friend, Dr. Eddie Ingram.
Dr. Wright, that was a wonderful introduction. I appreciate it. And, you know, you mention that all the time, how I rescued you. I don't know that I did that. You were one of those guys that I just knew from the get-go was going to be a superintendent one day. And but I was thinking about that. I said, you know, he's probably going to bring that up. And what was it? I think I said, you know, which hill are you going to die on or something like that.
That is exactly what you said.
Some hills you die on and some hills you don't. And
right.
You know, I think, gosh, it's just such a privilege to be here. Thank you for, and I got to say this. You showed a lot of class, and I really appreciate you offering the Hertford County football field to the Northeastern Eagles this past Saturday during their unfortunate situation that they're in right now, and that's a real tribute to you and your staff. You didn't have to do that, and and I know that Northeastern High School and the community really appreciates it. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. I really do appreciate that, and I just believe in treating people like I'd want to be treated. Everything went well. I think it was a very good success. Fortunately, in that case, the home team won.
Yeah.
I don't often pull for Northeastern, but in that case, of course, we are. And certainly glad that everything went well, and wish them well in their next contest this weekend out west. Hope they do really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Dr. Ingram, glad to have you on the show, and certainly want to get right into some questions here tonight. So start off by telling us about all the exciting, wonderful things that are going on right now in the Berkeley County School District.
Well, I'm at a different point in my leadership, and I'm retiring August 1, so I'm in the final weeks. I'm really thrilled that we have 3 very capable finalists, Dr. Wright, all in-house, okay. and that gives me a lot of confidence. A friend of ours, Dr. Terry Greer, told me that that's a tribute to leadership when the board sees that the talent is already in the community. And I'm real thrilled about that personally. Mr. Dion Jackson, Dr. Anthony Dixon, and Dr. Glenda Levine are the 3 finalists. And I think they have panel interviews in a couple of weeks. And then I think we'll know who the next superintendent will be at the end of May. It'll be an easier transition since I've worked with all of those leaders. And I think that there are a couple of things that I'm the most proud of in Berkeley. And in fact, I made this comment Tuesday night in the board meeting. I think my tenure served its purpose. We inherited a situation that was really bad fiscal shape. Unfortunately, a former CFO went to prison for embezzlement, and it took us 4 years, almost 4 years, but we are now out of and not under fiscal watch from the State Department. And that's a real tribute, not to me so much, but to all the people in the district that worked hard to implement procedures and protocols by which to spend money and watch over money. And we were able to come out of that pretty fast. So I'm really proud of that. The other thing that I'm really proud of is the academic direction. We have developed, just like we did in Darlington, but I think it's taken even more root here. And I'll talk about that with a future question, but we have to be concerned with what kids can do with what they know. And I call it accountability 2.0. And I'll reserve some more comments, but we went through 18 months of community meetings. Camps were involved. We used the platform of the documentary film from 2015, Most Likely to Succeed. And then we showed that to different communities, and we had a panel of high school students to ask them if they thought they were getting the kind of education that they needed to be successful. And so a couple of the skills, I won't go through all of them, but when I think of the pandemic and what we had to do, it was really appropriate. The top thing that we focus on is adaptability. We have to be able to adapt. This is a perfect example of it, the meeting that we're having tonight. We're in the comforts of, at least, I don't know, I'm at my own home. I had to move.
So am I, right. Yep.
Some things out of the way so you couldn't see some of the junk. There's some things that we've learned. So we've had to adapt. We've had to be resilient. And those skills, they don't replace the curriculum, but they're embedded in the curriculum. So I'm more interested in kids being able to exhibit resilience, adaptability, critical thinking. What can you do with what you know? It's not how much you know, but what can you do with what you know, as opposed to trying to memorize answers for a test. And that's the exciting thing. And knowing that the next superintendent is going to be, who is already on our staff, I'm confident that those foundational seeds will continue. So those are the 2 things that I have to say in Berkeley that I'm by far the most proud of, more than anything.
Sounds like you have an abundance to be proud of, and that follows good leadership. So you're to be commended for the work you've done there. So a little bit more, what size is the district? I know these, but for our audience, what size is Berkeley County? It's pretty large.
Dr. Wright, we're big. We're the fourth largest district in South Carolina. Now, South Carolina is a small state. It's about half the size of North Carolina. Berkeley County has about 36,500 kids. We have 47 schools. The county is geographically large. It's 1,200 square miles. It's actually larger than the state of Rhode Island.
Wow.
So it's large. And I tell people all the time, in some ways, it's more difficult to run a smaller district than it is a larger district, just like a high school. Because you have to do the same things that I have to do in Berkeley, but you don't have the staff that I have. I have a lot of staff. Now, with that staff comes a lot of thoroughbreds, and you have to be. It's kind of like when I used to coach basketball. When I had those great teams in Elizabeth City, you have to find enough playing time for about 8 or 10 guys, and you've only got 32 minutes to let them play. So it could be a little challenging sometimes, and I think you have to unhitch folks from the post and let them do their jobs. But that's the size of Berkeley County, and we've got poverty, but we've got urban and suburban and rural. So we've got the whole gamut.
A little bit of everything.
Yes, sir.
So tell me about, you're getting ready to return home to Elizabeth City, Pasquotank, serve as an interim superintendent for a period of time. So tell us a little bit about what you're looking perhaps to accomplish during that period of time.
I've spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I've talked to, you probably know Dr. Overstreet, Andy Overstreet from North Carolina State. He's an accomplished superintendent. And then, of course, Henry Johnson, who was former state superintendent in Mississippi and also with the State Department of North Carolina for a long time, and even at the national level. Right. And an interim is very different. An interim, you really want to know what the board wants to do. I was on annual leave a week ago or so, and I was in Elizabeth City, and I worked with the board on developing their values. So it's sort of an exercise, and you kind of ask them what they are looking for. And so I think it's helping to develop leaders, but also helping the board become high impact. Mm-hmm. So I know that I'll have a limited time there. It could be just a few weeks. It could be a few months. It could turn into something different. So you have to really kind of hit the ground running. But I believe in intentional interim superintendencies. I've always wanted to do this because I guess it's my ADHD. I think I can come in and hopefully analyze a situation pretty quickly and customize my service to what the district needs the most. And I think if you have a servant's heart, that you're there not to be the boss, but to be the servant, then I think that will serve things well and help other people grow. And you and I talked off camera before because they have a wonderful person there now, Rhonda James Davis. She's very capable and she's a former high school student of mine. So when you're in the business as long as I am, you start to say, I'm sort of in the place where I want other people to grow and develop, and I'm passing the baton, so to speak.
Sure.
So you look at each individual district and you look at their critical needs and where you can make the most difference the fastest, I think is what you want to do. So we're not sure where all of that is right now, but they've had some turnover as lots of districts. Your guest last week, the average superintendency is 3 years?
That's right. In the nation, isn't that something?
I think that key is to build leaders in your district so that when the leader steps out, another person is ready to step in.
Ready to go. That's right.
I think that's what we have to do. I really do. Companies do that. And I believe school districts need to be prepared to follow the same suit, quite frankly.
So other than the couple of moments that you've mentioned already, 39-year career, we talked about in your bio. What are some of your proudest moments?
Well, I think I I could go more than any more. I could talk about so many things.
Sure.
But if I had to pick a few, I think the early college high school in Franklin County was important. That's successful today. I think that's one of the bigger ones. I would have to say. I think my first principalship. I think of D.S. Johnson Elementary School in Rocky Mount.
How about that? Yeah. Okay.
People that felt like because of poverty and race and things like that, the kids couldn't achieve, and our writing scores went. And I'm not a scores guy, you know that, but the writing scores went up 50%. And our Odyssey of the Mind team got to the World Finals in Knoxville, Tennessee. We're the state champions in World Finals, and you've got 95% free reduced lunch at that school, and they actually defeated the grand champion in one part of the competition. They defeated the world champion in one part of that competition.
From good old D.S. Johnson. That's an amazing accomplishment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I was really proud of that. So those are a couple of things that stand out. And I think the work we've done here in Berkeley with helping a district recover from financial crisis to being out of fiscal watch and a fund balance of about $89 million, which, that sounds really big, but it's proportionally not big because we're so large, so it's the decimal point, the numbers behind the decimal point, it's all proportional, but we have about 25% of 25% of, or I should say probably we're supposed to have 15% of an average expenditures on hand, and we have about 25%. So we're in good shape there.
If you're operating with 25% in this day and climate, that's actually excellent. With all of
it is. But we have a lot of growth. We have Volvo's there. Boeing is right next door in Charleston. Nucor Steel. We have industries that a lot of places don't have.
Right.
So the problem we have is growth, because we're growing so fast. We can't build fast enough to keep up with the growth. So we're growing. Before the pandemic, we were averaging almost 1,000 kids a year growth. Well, that's a school.
That's right.
That's a big school. So trying to manage those things and district lines. And as you know, the boards in South Carolina have some limited taxing authority, which makes for, in some ways, a higher stakes. Board elections in some cases are a little higher stakes because of that authority.
That's right.
But I would have to say those things are some of my proudest. But most of all, seeing my former students who've become educational leaders.
Right.
Some of my former students are actually retired. Melvin Hawkins, I taught him in high school. He's a retired superintendent.
That's right.
Go to the glue factory, man. But and then Rhonda, James Davis, and other kids. I still call them kids, but I think that makes me the most proud. And if I had a small part of that, then that makes me really happy. Seeing other people achieve their goals makes me really happy. So.
Yeah, and even though I have not been in education quite as long as you have, I just learned the other day that one of my former students just received tenure at East Carolina University. And you talk about sticking your chest out a little bit. I taught her at Edwards.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so those are precious moments for sure.
No question about it in my mind.
So Dr. Ingram, this is kind of a short question, but an important one, I think. What should post-pandemic schools look like, in your opinion?
Well, they are going to be different. And the infusion of technology, we always had it here, but we were forced to do it. I think I'll just reference an article that our listeners should look up. Chris Deedy from Harvard, the Harvard School of Education, wrote, the necessity is the parent of transformation. In other words, necessity has forced us to change.
I like it.
And those are the good things about the pandemic, because it forced us to do things we've been able to do all along, but didn't want to do because we're creatures of habit and we want to stay in what's comfortable. And the pandemic made us extremely uncomfortable. And I'm so proud of educators across the country who literally turned education. It's like turning an aircraft carrier on a dime.
Right.
We went from full-blown traditional instruction to remote instruction like that.
That's right.
And we always had the ability to do it, but the necessity of the pandemic forced us to transform. So I think virtual options will always be there.
Right.
They're never going away. And quite frankly, families should have choice.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I think.
Awesome. Now I've heard you speak a whole lot. This is my favorite question of the night, by the way. You've spoken a lot over your career about the need to look at the assessment of children differently. So let's hear your ideas concerning that. I'm really interested to get into this one.
I'll be really, really fast.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
The tests aren't evil. How we use it is.
Right.
Did any one test score, Dr. Wright, negatively affect where you are in life today? No.
No, sir. Not one.
I asked the board, a board last week, I said, and I've asked this of almost every board, do you believe that high test scores equate to success in life? And everybody goes a resounding no. No, they don't. They don't. The average high school dropout has above average intelligence. Mm-hmm. And I think it's more about work and life skills, being able to get along with other people, being able to solve problems, being able to collaborate, work together. We used to call that cheating, by the way. You know, we used to call it cheating in school. You know, I mean, I'm old enough to remember, and you might be, I doubt it, but you might be. But we had to have a cover sheet, you know, to make sure nobody checked looked off our paper.
I've seen one or two of those.
And you know, that's just not true anymore.
Right.
And because of those dispositions, and because of those facts, we have to change with that. So I'm excited about an initiative in South Carolina. I hope to introduce it in North Carolina. So you'll hear more about this. The whole child community school, where you take rural schools and you help people, you help a community lift itself up by its own bootstraps. Mm-hmm. And schools aren't just going to be places where kids come to school from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock and then go home, or whatever the time is. They should really never be closed, especially in rural areas. They should provide opportunities for parent engagement, community engagement, adult education at night. They should really never be closed. Maybe not quite open 24/7, 7 days a week, but pretty much. And they should offer a lot more choice. Right. Because today's graduate from high school is going to have 10 to 14 different jobs by the time they're 38 years old.
Isn't that an amazing statistic? It sure is.
And we have to think about what kids can do with what they know, not what they can recall.
That's right.
I mean, we have more. There's a more powerful computer in this phone than the Saturn V rocket, and I'm not exaggerating.
That's right.
And we have more information stored in here than the Library of Congress. So we don't have to memorize things. We can access it in seconds.
Right.
So what are we going to do with some knowledge that we've never seen before, but be able to think through and apply it to solve a complex problem? And I think we have to look at curriculum very differently. When I think of the bailouts and the federal deficit and financial literacy, why is that not a math standard? And why shouldn't it be taught in every school across the country? 47% of Americans could not pay an unexpected $400 bill because they haven't saved enough money, but we haven't taught people that, you know, and I have a daughter that spent time at North Carolina State in engineering, and she said, Daddy, you know, we're being taught math that we may need to have overviews and understandings, but we've got tools that do these things. We have to understand how it works, but we don't have to, we don't have to memorize things like we used to. So I think there are ways to measure growth. There's a consortium, and actually this gentleman is relocated to Raleigh or the Cary area. Wake Forest actually is where he lives. It's called the Mastery Transcript Consortium. We joined it in Berkeley County, and I would encourage schools in Hertford County to join it. And I would like to introduce it to the region when I get there. It's the typical transcript is a photograph. Mm-hmm. A mastery transcript is a photograph album. Okay. And I think it could be, we could include credential stacking. Degrees, the importance of degrees are going to go away. And we're going to have a series of credentialing. And the more credentials we can give kids, even in high school, they'll be able to go out and get gainful employment or create their own jobs by which to do that. And we could make, and work should be public, William. I mean, our work is public now, and we need to teach our kids that their work products should be public, under public scrutiny. And that's often done in teams, not sitting in a standardized environment where you have these tests. And I know we still use EVOS in North Carolina, correct?
Yeah.
William Sanders, and he's passed now, but I had the privilege of meeting him and speaking with him and having lunch with him one day. And it was never intended to be a teacher evaluation tool or a school evaluation tool, but it's an accurate predictor of what kids can do. And I think that we have to look at how kids grow, but not just by standardized quantitative measures, also qualitative measures.
That's right.
I'm more interested, and we got to do something with grad rates. In our district, we've got 8 comprehensive high schools. A couple thousand kids apiece in about 3 of them. Okay, and they fight to keep the kids. I had a kid tell me he was at the middle college. Well, my school didn't want me to leave because they were going to lose a good test score. Let's do what's in the best interest of the kid. But I don't blame the schools, because we shouldn't judge our schools on grad rates. Okay, we pat them on the back, we give them a diploma, we've done our job. No, we haven't. How well are the kids doing 5 years and 10 years after they leave Hertford County High School, after they leave Northeastern High School, after they leave Philip Simmons High School here in Berkeley County? That is a better accountability measure to me than what a rate is that, quite frankly, can be manufactured.
Exactly. Depends on where you are.
I'm getting ready to retire. I don't have anything loose when I say this.
That's right.
When I was in Darlington, we had the highest grad rate in the state at one time. People were bragging about it. We dumped a lot of kids. I mean, we had dumped a lot of kids in adult education.
Right. And
you can now that they closed that loophole, but I was never big in loopholes. I didn't like to do that, because what good is that grad rate if Ingram High School has 100 kids in the senior class, but started with 350 kids in the freshman class? What happened to those 250 kids? Did all of them move away? No, a lot of them left school.
Right.
And why did they leave? And then I've got a 100% grad rate. Doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
And now I don't really blame the educators for doing those things because of the high stakes accountability. But I think that's what the high stake single test accountability has done. It's forced some pretty good people to do some things that I don't think are particularly in the best interest of kids. Right. And let's just focus on what's in the best interest of kids. So that's my mission. And just because I'm retiring doesn't mean that I'm going to come off that mission.
Well, Well, I don't expect you to. I'm looking
don't
forward
worry.
to continue to do that. That's right.
But I think the Mastery Transcript Consortium has a lot of promise. I would encourage folks in the Northeast to do that. And let's work in North Carolina to get Accountability 2.0 going and work in life skills. Let's teach kids for their future, not my past.
Right. Exactly.
And that's where we have to have thinkers.
Exactly.
Not memorizers.
That's right. Preparing them for the multiplicity of jobs that haven't even been invented yet.
I like that, multiplicity. You taught me something today.
How about that? Dr. Ingram, being a source of knowledge for so many of us, what are some things that you do to continue to grow as a leader?
I'm a voracious reader.
Okay.
William, not just of educationese or educational things, although I read a lot of educational things. I read about leadership. I like nonfiction, so I read a lot about presidential leadership. I read a lot about. I've read CEO biographies, memoirs. A couple of my recent favorites. Jack Welch, who recently passed away, who led General Electric for 10 years. What were the things that he did? Franklin Roosevelt, how he navigated the United States through World War II. Mike Krzyzewski, how he's built a real program, a successful program at Duke University. So I read a lot of leadership memoirs. I try to read widely. I learned that in the old PEP program with Robert Fay, the Principal Executive Program in North Carolina. Gosh, it's been nearly 30 years since I was in that program. But he always said that educators should read at least one book a month. And I probably read 2 or 3 books a month. I'm always reading a book. I read articles too, but I like to read books. And I like to read nonfiction books. Because the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know.
Right.
One
of my favorites is Jim Collins' From Good to Great.
That's a good book, and I've read that.
I love it. Even though it's considered to be a business book, I enjoy it. And it applies very well to educational leadership, in my opinion.
The 5 dysfunctions of a team.
That's right.
So I think that's the biggest thing. We read and we think and we reflect and we have conversations with people like you. We get together, and it's great because with technology we can get together with a lot of people. Ed Leader 21, I want to put a plug in for them too.
Okay.
That network is it focuses on work and life skills, the portrait of graduates all the way through the country. And I can jump on, and I do. I jump on. I missed one this week, but I can jump on a superintendent's roundtable with superintendents across the country. I mean, I was on one with superintendents in Florida, Washington State, California, New York, literally across the entire continental United States. And you are affirmed because you see you're not in this alone. We have the same problems, the same issues, but we learn really great things from each other. And the best professional development is right now. Exactly. We're talking with each other, we're listening to each other. And this old dog often learns things from the youngest of people. And I think listening is important. Because I like to talk, sometimes I have a tendency to listen with the intent to respond, but I need to consciously learn to listen more and digest the perspective of the people or person, man or woman, boy or girl is talking with me, to learn more about that. And that helps me more effectively do my job. When my wife was working in social work, school social work, she kept me grounded. And she would even take me to home visits sometimes at night with her, installing a washer and dryer in a trailer in a rural part of South Carolina where the family had a washer, but it was outside and the water source was the garden hose. And holes in the floor of the trailer, you could see the ground, and obviously not enough food in the house. And then I'm listening to people say, well, the kid won't do his homework. Well, I mean, I couldn't do my homework either in certain environments. So
sure.
I think paying attention to our surroundings and our world. Education's easy to be in a silo and kind of ignore. I mean, we're all good at playing school. That's why we went into the school business. We love school, right?
That's right.
I never looked at myself as working a day in my life. I get up and go to school. I don't get up and go to work. I get up and go to school. But that's because I was in a middle class family that appreciated education, and my grandparents on my dad's side were educators. So I followed suit, but I learned pretty quickly that the good old days weren't so good for everybody.
That's right. That's exactly right. So, Dr. Ingram, you've covered a wealth of knowledge for us tonight, and we certainly do appreciate.
I ramble and I'm conscious.
It's been great. It's been fantastic. Is there anything else that I did not perhaps cover that you'd like to share at this time?
Leadership, if I'm speaking to aspiring leaders.
Sure.
Don't be overly ambitious and try to be the Secretary of Education at 28 years old. Take care of your own backyard, right. In the sandbox you're in. Do the very best you can. And don't lead by position power, telling people what to do. Lead through knowledge and influence. Mm-hmm. And don't be afraid to admit you're wrong. Don't be afraid to unhitch teachers from the post. If you're a superintendent, unhitch your principals from the post. Because if I believe everything in the book called the multiplier effect, school districts tend to leave they could multiply their brain power or their intellectual capital by 2.5 times if they just had the growth mindset orientation, and they allow talented people to do their jobs. Right. People don't leave bad jobs; they leave bad bosses.
Exactly. Just hold on for me for a minute here, Dr. Ingram. We'll come right back. Audience, my next podcast will air on May 6th, 2021 at 7:00 p.m. My guest next week will be Dr. Kirk Peterson, who is the president of Chowan University here in my beloved Hertford County over in Murfreesboro, North Carolina. Look forward to that opportunity to talk with Dr. Peterson and learn about higher education leadership. Dr. Ingram, I want to take this opportunity to thank you very much for being my guest. I appreciate your willingness to be a part of the Wright experience. And I look forward to having you back on the platform. We'll wait and let you get settled in Elizabeth City and back in. And then I'd love to invite you back to talk with us some more about those experiences, as well as piggyback on your wealth of knowledge. I think the audience sees why I consider you to be one of my mentors and people that I depend on to talk with and go over things. And you've always been very helpful to me as a growing leader. So,
well, it's a privilege, and we all grow. I mean,
absolutely.
For this summer, and I'm going to grow until I don't breathe anymore. And it is really, really a privilege. And what's that movie, Bill Murray, kind of What About Bob keeps showing up? I'm kind of like
right.
I kind of recycle. So I'm looking forward to reconnecting with the Northeastern section of North Carolina. I think there's a lot of great work to be done there. It's a great place to live, and I don't think I fully appreciated it until after I left it. So I'm looking forward to coming home. That's for sure.
Well, welcome back home, and I'd like to thank the audience for watching the Wright Experience. Good evening.
Thank you.